Reimaginers, it's RJ and Chester. I'm just coming to get the bunny. Yeah, get this fella out of here. We're doing serious talk right now, okay? Why'd you throw him? I don't like him, he creeps me out. I'm watching you. So I'm sure you've read the title of this video by now. And yes, this has been done to death at this point ever since Your Movie Sucks did it. In fact, watching Your Movie Sucks, quadrilogy, quintilogy, whatever, his series of videos covering the stuff that scared him as a child is kind of a Halloween tradition that I have now. So I thought I might as well just throw in my random hat into the mix and talk about things that scared me as a child. Because the more I thought about it, the more unusual it was. I mean, I wasn't scared of normal stuff as a child, and I thought I would be because I grew up in a fairly normal, not Halloween-oriented household. Maybe it had to do with all those Star Trek episodes we watched. I mean, if the Borg didn't scare 4-year-old me, then what did? So I had started writing up like a script describing in details or trying to describe in detail these things that scared me and like stories behind them and all of that. And then I just kind of went, you know what might be more entertaining? It might be more entertaining if I just go down this list and I try to explain off the top of my head. Because some of these things I had to like dig really deep into the crevices of my memory to get. And some of it I had to like watch stuff, like pull out stuff I used to watch as a child, because some of it wasn't even related to like the actual thing that I watched. It was like something like a commercial or something random that I associated with it. So it took a while to make the list in the first place, and I'm not entirely sure why all of these things scared me, so it was kind of hard to write a script for it. So I just decided, hey, let's just have me, you, the camera, and this lovely pumpkin spice drink in my hand as I try and describe things that scared me as a child and why I think they might have scared me. So, without further ado, let the childhood breakdown begin. Alright, the first one on here, the opening of Fraggle Rock. Okay, I mean, it's clearly, I'm not scared of puppets. I mean, obviously, you can just look around the channel for 2 seconds and no, I am not someone who's scared of puppets or dolls. I hadn't even seen Fraggle Rock as a child, and the opening still freaked me out. I think I did have some VHS tapes of Muppet Show episodes, or like that whole thing they were doing in the 90s where they were like reenacting Christmas Carol and Treasure Island, and I think they did like a couple of fairy tales. They had like a video compilation where they acted out different fairy tales, and I think that was the one that this fear comes off of. And now that I'm actually thinking about it, I got two things scared me from this one VHS, which is really weird to think about. I totally forgot about the second thing until I started talking about this thing. So one of these things was on the list and the other one wasn't on the list at all. Boy, now I'm really glad I'm doing this unscripted because I'm discovering all kinds of stuff about myself I forgot. What was my point with all of this? All right. So basically, in this one VHS I had of the Muppets doing fairy tales, there was commercials at the beginning of it, which is where the Fraggle Rock part came in, because they would have a commercial, you know, advertising, watch Fraggle Rock, or watch the VHS sets we've got on Fraggle Rock now, because yeah, the show was over by the time I was a child. So, but it advertised the show by playing the opening song that they do on Fraggle Rock. And looking back at it now, like, Fraggle Rock is great. I really enjoy it. When I was older, I watched all the episodes when it was starting to really dive into all of Henson's works. And it's a great show to watch, and I do recommend it for other people. But for some reason, the Gorgs freaked me out as a child. Like, the Fraggles were fine because they looked kind of like, you know, regular hand Muppet things, and even now, regular hand Muppets with rod arms are still my favorites out of most puppets, although I can respect the larger ones just for the sheer size and complications that go into them. But the Gorgs were terrifying to me, because during the opening song, you have the main Fraggle, Gobo. He's walking along and he's singing, and then he just kind of pokes his head out in the Gorg's world, and the Gorg reaches his massive hand in and like pulls out tiny little Gobo, and he's like this big in the Gorg's hand, and then something happens and he lets Gobo go and he like falls down through another hole, and that freaked me out so much. Not only the Gorgs like reaching in and grabbing this creature that I thought was probably about the same size as child me, but then like all these mysterious holes that popped up, it kind of scared me because it's like, well, Fraggle holes could be anywhere. It could be in my house. It could be in my grandma's house where I watched most of this stuff. And the thought of just having like a random Fraggle hole, but no Fraggles inside, just like the Gorg hand reaching in and grabbing me, the thought of that scared me. So it wasn't really anything that the show did. It was just what I thought could happen. And then on top of that, the second thing that I remembered now in the midst of talking about this was before the VHS officially started with the fairy tale stuff, they did this thing for a while where they had like a green outline of Kermit the Frog, and like this little star would go through and do Kermit the Frog, and you'd see his face and like the music would swell, and it was supposed to be like this big grand, oh, it's Kermit. But to me, that scared me. I'm not sure why. Also, like the little star like going on the Jim Henson logo, that like the whole Jim Henson logo for that era scared me. I don't know why. It just did. So yeah, there's two things right there. All right, so next we have a scene from one of the Star Wars movies. Okay, I'll clarify this by saying I watched them out of order as a kid. I saw Return of the Jedi first. Granted, if my parents were supervising me when I put that in, my dad would have made sure I watched them properly. But he was not there. It was just me and curiosity and a VHS player. And a lot of shenanigans can happen to a child left to their own devices with a bunch of her parents' old movies. So that was my introduction into Star Wars there. I was around 5 or 6. And of course I enjoyed it as a kid because of the Ewoks. That's like the child appeal, the teddy bear Ewok. So I always enjoyed that. But there was a scene in that movie that really scared me. And it wasn't like all the stuff with Jabba. It wasn't the Sarlacc pit. It was at the end of the movie. And spoilers, I guess, for Star Wars, but I feel like everyone under the sun has seen it at this point. But at the end of the Return of the Jedi, Luke does his like final confrontation with Vader in an attempt to get Vader to the light side. So they have their whole big battle, and then Luke refuses to fight and shows that he's the better person, he's the true Jedi. So then the Emperor that was trying to get Luke to the dark side is just like, well, if you're not going to be a Jedi, then you're just going to die. And he electrocutes Luke with the special effects that they had at the time, which they've aged all right, but they probably haven't aged the best. But that scene scared me. I would still watch through it, but I'd watch through it and sit there with my eyes covered like this until it was over. And I knew when it would be over because I could see like the flashes of the Emperor zapping Luke from behind my hands. And yeah, that really scared me. And I don't think it was so much like the effect of the electrocuting either. It was the facial expressions they kept cutting to, because you get like the shots of the Emperor and his face showing that he's enjoying killing Luke and destroying him. And then you also see Luke writhing on the ground screaming in absolute agony. And that was terrifying. The Emperor's having fun and Luke's about to die. And I really liked Luke. But again, I started with Return of the Jedi, so I didn't realize he was a whiny character. I just was first introduced to him in all of his epic Jedi-ness and his awesome black outfit that he's got and his cool green lightsaber and metal biotic hand, metallic hand. You know what I'm saying. I can't think of the word right now. Mechanical. I'm going to beat myself over the head later that I can't remember this. But you get the idea. Luke in Return of the Jedi is awesome. He's like a cool hero-esque thing, and he's not the whiny character from the previous movies, which I had no knowledge of when I saw Return of the Jedi as a kid. So because of all of that, seeing like this epic character get taken down and like screaming in pain was really scary as a kid. And then I saw Empire Strikes Back, and I found a whole lot of other things to be afraid of. Han frozen in carbonite, absolutely terrifying. The Wampa, didn't like that. The Tauntauns, Something about the Tauntauns disturbed me. Again, this is all just coming back. I remembered Return of the Jedi more vividly because that was the first one I saw. But a lot of things in Empire Strikes Back really bothered me. And even though my dad would be like, oh, this is the best one. Child me was like, I don't want to watch this. I don't want to watch Empire Strikes Back. Of course now, of course I'm going to watch Empire Strikes Back. It's a classic. But at the time, that was the process that went through child me's head. All right, so the next one on this list, there's like a whole complicated story. And it all comes down to when they tried making Inspector Gadget movies. I never actually saw any of them. I just saw like a glimpse of one scene, and I think there was a trailer for the bad attempt at a sequel that they did in front of my Monsters, Inc. VHS that I would watch a lot because I loved Monsters Incorporated. But I remember my parents, well, I guess more specifically my dad, we have a habit of channel surfing in my house. You just kind of look at a channel for a couple of seconds, and if you don't think it's what you want to watch, you just keep going. We don't really sit on a channel for a long period of time. We just kind of rapidly flip through them like Ham and Toy Story 2. But during one of those like flip moments in the evening, I just very briefly saw a bit of Inspector Gadget. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know that it was based on a cartoon. I didn't know that the live action movie was technically terrible and all of that. I had no idea about that. I just remembered the scene where they have him open and he's got like all the gears and wires inside of him because he's a robot now. And that's all I remember. And that scared me so much. Just the thought of like opening up a person and not finding what you're supposed to find inside a person, but finding something else. That scared me probably more than any body horror could have done at the time. Just this really bad CGI of metallic gear parts inside Matthew Broderick. That's what scared me as a kid. And then when I figured out that like the bad trailer thing before my Monsters Inc. movie and that scene were part of the same movie set, I wanted to make a complaint about it because I thought it was too scary. So I tried writing a complaint to Disney. All right, I think I was 7. I tried writing a complaint to Disney, okay? But I didn't know their address. The only like address I could find as a kid was, once again, rummaging through the video cabinet because for some reason I thought that's where to find addresses. And I found an address on this tape that Disney had sent us as like an advertisement for Animal Kingdom opening. This is showing my age. I wouldn't remember going to the opening of Animal Kingdom 2, but that's beside the point. That's like a not nearly as interesting story because I don't remember most of it. But part of that will also be on this list now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, so there was, it was sent to us in the mail, so there was an address on it, like, yes, I'll write this letter to Disney, but the address was for Disney World because it was a tape advertising Disney World. So some Disney World employee got this letter from a 7-year-old child complaining about the Inspector Gadget movies being too scary. I really hope that made some employee's day. Some good had to have come out of that mess. Because even thinking about it now, it cringes. I inwardly cringe inside. It's just, ugh. Why didn't my mom stop me? She walked to the mailbox with me and she didn't stop me. Woo! Hey, this is a part of a series, so if you like this first part of the video, go ahead and put a pause up and press that like button. If you want to see the upcoming childhood fears, go ahead and press subscribe, ring that bell so you get notified when the next one is up. Should be coming up around next week. This is Chester D. Myers signing off because the boss wasn't sure how to finish it off and she wasn't planning on putting it in parts, but then she realized how long the videos were getting. So she said, put it in parts! And I'm editing them. Yeah. Okay, goodbye! How do I turn this thing off again? Boss, how do I turn off the camera? Just push the button. Okay, the button.